I hope you see my presentation, full screen.
Yes.
Just a moment, can see the full screen already? Yeah, okay, great. So happy to be here today. Thank you, Satulu, for having me. And I'm always eager to talk about Web3 and especially on DAOs. I'm a believer or evangelist, as you can see on my LinkedIn profile. I strongly believe that Web3 and especially DAO will change the economy in very rigorous way. Blockchain, of course, will be the infrastructure for this change. And a lot of things will look differently while we'll transferring our economy from the Web 2 to Web 3. So I wrote this book. This is a dynamic book. I'm keeping updating the book, and it's open on the website on the web. You can find it on my LinkedIn. And I'm trying to write some papers each and every month in order to keep the dynamic changes in this very ever-changing field. And I hope that we will talk about the idea of DAO, the definition of DAOs, some reference about the governance of DAOs, the functionality, what targets it could aim at, and what values it could bring to our new decentralized economy. And I really hope that at the end of this session, we would be more knowledgeable and more prepared for the changes that is coming. And I will really appreciate your questions and any remark. I understand that we will gather questions and we'll refer to them at the end of the presentation, because some of the issues will be resolved through the presentation. Just to note, I have a think tank. I'm trying to crystallize people that are interested in DAOs around the world, and experts that deal with DAO and consult and operate DAOs within my think tank called DAO for DAOs. So you're most welcome to read and engage with my website, and contact me on the LinkedIn that we could be in touch and collaborate maybe in project and think together. And especially my most important view on the blockchain arena is constant learning. And I believe that everyone ought to learn, lifelong learning. And I'm trying to do my best in spreading the word and around the world and contributing my humble knowledge and experience to the newcomers in order to create impact in our world towards the Web3 and the new economy that we're aiming at. So this was in a nutshell my activities. DAO, you can see here the DAO ecosystem. It's very young. It's still on its infancy, as you can see. The internet helped us to make large-scale human coordination possible. And we believe that the Web3 with DAO tools now enable the humanity to design and manage incentives to maintain a positive relationship among the stakeholders and keep them in line with their common goals. There are a few companies or institutions gathering the DAO data or the DAO ecosystem information constantly. And as you can see, we're just at the beginning of this industry, very young and thriving industry. We nowadays have only $8 billion treasury in the DAO ecosystem, and only 1.5 million governance token holders. It means people that could vote. As you can see here, we have active voters and proposal. We will talk about it in a minute. What are the mechanisms for the DAO governance? But with this data and those numbers, you can see we're only at the beginning of this fantastic industry. And all of you are the first people, not the only first people, but the early adopters. And we'll talk a little bit about the history of the DAO since 2016. But still, we're at very early age, and you are all very welcome to join. You can make a difference in this very young industry. So we would like to think or to focus a little bit about what are decentralized autonomous organization. What does it mean, the term DAO? And we would like to think about its form and its activities and its mechanisms and its target and aims and vision in order to see whether it's compatible and could add value to our economical ideas, our innovation in our organization, our startup, technological startup, and others. So the DAO, as its name refers, are decentralized autonomous organization. That we know the term organization, we know it's kind of a firm or a company or a corporate that function without hierarchical management. These organizations are usually community managed. The community is gathering towards a specific target or specific value or specific action they want to execute. And the people are managing themselves. The community is self-managed and do not use the usual form of management top-down. Changes and rules are taken effect based on a response received by polling or voting. We will drill into these mechanisms. And they are much similar to smart contract. They are based on smart contract, that they too operate based on predefined conditions. If explained more technically, I hope it won't bother anyone, a DAO is a form of contract in which the processes and laws of the group or the community are embedded in those contracts and inserted as a permanent code of the smart contract and operate through distributed consensus protocol. I take it for granted that you are familiar with some of the basic terms of blockchain. Consensus mechanism is the operation or the way in which participants and computers in a blockchain are gathering their consents. And they are, as I mentioned, predefined. It's supposed to be very clear to each of the members what are the social contract and the technological contract in the basis of this operation. We would like to try to understand what are the differences between the traditional organization and DAO, to be more precise. If we could focus on the forms and the mechanism of usual organization or traditional organization, we could say that a traditional or usual organization follows a top-down hierarchical model of leadership with centralized authority on top. For example, a CEO or financial decision, or a CFO will take those decisions. This is not the scenario at the DAO. Here, the leadership and decision-making are transferred to distributed network of autonomous participants. Regular organization is legally a legal entity that is registered in a specific geographical nation or a country, centrally approved, and a DAO is not centralized at all. Traditional organization use legal contract to work with its employees, where a DAO simply make use of decentralized smart contract. The simplest way to describe how DAO works is to compare it to a company. For instance, the organizational structure. Okay, we could try to compare each other. Organizational structure in a company, it will be hierarchical structure led by a CEO and other executives, board, for instance. And DAO is flat structure led by a group of core contributors. It could be a sub-DAO, or it could be only a group of participants that are contributing their knowledge and their ideas into a specific action or processes. The decision-making, for instance, at a company, management will make decisions behind closed doors, usually, not in a purpose to hide something, but this is an internal processes. In DAO, members submit proposal and vote on them using DAO token in public. I mean, everything is transparent, and we could track and trace all the decision-making, all the processes, all the suggestions that those members suggest in order to proceed or to develop activities in the DAO. If we'll try to overview the onboarding process, for instance, in a company, a candidate need to apply and pass interviews to get hired. In a DAO, some DAO let everyone join, while others require minimum number of tokens. In order to join a DAO, you have to purchase the governance token and contribute to its treasury in order to create this mutual or joint treasury to help the organization to create or to achieve its goals. If we'll think about the career advancement, how would we advance in our position in a usual organization or traditional organization and compare it to a DAO? In a company, employees need to climb the corporate ladder. They have to comply some achievement. They have to provide some feedback and have feedback from their own managers. And in DAO, members can start contributing right away to gain the trust of the core contributor and their community. Once I purchase the governance token, I'm part of the DAO, and I can try to find myself to find the best way in the DAO to contribute, whether to its managerial group or to some other processes within the DAO. If we'll talk about compensation, okay, compensation of employees or compensation of contributors, as you can see, even the term of that we're using, employee, and compared to contributor, you can see the position is very different. Okay, so in a traditional company, most employees work full-time and they are compensated through salary and stock sometimes. In DAO, most contributors work part-time, and usually they work in some or a few DAOs that are compatible to their value and are adequate to their way of thinking. And they work part-time and are compensated through DAO's token or other cryptocurrencies. So they contribute, they engage with the DAO processes, and they get the compensation in an adequate way, and a way that the DAO can compare and can find out whether you contributed to the processes, or you are just a viewer, or you just got the token, but you're not involved at the procedures or at the activity of the DAO. As you can see, DAO have both advantage and disadvantage compared to companies. Advantage includes letting more people contribute, participate in decision, and own wealth, okay? And be more engaged somehow in a usual organization, in traditional organization. We're coming to do our work, and we have some form of control and command, and we know our task, and we ought to fulfill those tasks and get the feedback and be in line with the requirement. But in DAOs, each and every one of the participants can be an entrepreneur, could have his own idea, bring it to the DAO, and present and influence the way the organization is working. There are, of course, some disadvantages. Not everything is a walk in the park. And some of the disadvantages include having to coordinate part-time workforce in a decentralized manner. It's not very easy. Not all of us know how to control our time, how we can manage our tasks, and so on. It is more self-driven, or our own intrinsic values and decision have to manage our activities. So if we compare some of the forms, for instance, or just an overview of the form of the organization, we could see that the form of the organization is very it changes very dramatically. We can see that here we have such pyramidal form, in which we have the decision making on the top and the execution on the bottom, with a line of control and command, and management and sub-management, and C-level directors, and some others. And in the form of DAO, we can see a lot of mismatch of engagement, computers and smart contract and people and tokens, and we can see it is somehow a different creature and it require some other way of referring and activities in this organization. We would like to see what are the basic steps to operate at a DAO, and how does it work. We can see that we have to lay several steps in order to proceed and laying down the rules and guidelines. First and foremost, the people that will gather into this DAO has to accept the basic rules of this group. They have to acknowledge which organization they are entering, what are their goals, what are their mission. It all begins with starting rules and guidelines or bylaws. You can call it bylaws. These are basically the instruction or warning you outlined, and you want to particular organization won't work under. You are required to formulate in a very clear way and a very knowledgeable way the rules, because later on it would be very hard to change it once it is they are embedded in the smart contract. It will be less easier to change. We will have the smart contract as very basic tool in the organization, in the DAO. There are all the rules of the organization are now penned down in the code into a smart contract. The smart contract is a computer application or a program. It resides autonomously on the web and needs people to do tasks that our smart contract cannot do on its own. I mean, some of the processes within the DAO would be managed by the smart contract, by the rules that the initiators has crystallized or based on the organization. And other operations that the smart contract could not do, that need more human-like decision-making and input, would be done by the members of the DAO. We can think of, for instance, if we're talking about voting for suggestions or for some agenda, we can create some rules about the percentage of engagement that we need to have in order to decide that a specific decision is taking place. We could create rules saying we need 51% consent in order to accept proposition or proposal for a specific activity at the DAO. We can decide we need 75% in order to execute this decision, and so on. This is the basic rules in which the smart contract will gather the voting later on, and they will help the DAO execute the decisions. And we can see all of this embedded in the code. We can read it before we engage in the DAO, before we buy the token, and the smart contract helps the organization work more efficiently and do not deal with the very technical part of the operation, and leave the attention of the people, of the participant, for more knowledgeable or more human high-level decisions. Some other processes we need in order to crystallize or to create a DAO is very important steps. We call it funding. It is the next, the funding phase is very important, which is one of the most crucial step in the process for mainly two reasons. First, all DAOs required a token or some treasury in order to operate, in order to execute the processes. So these tokens are basically an internal property of the DAO, the treasury, and the organization uses these treasury for its operation. They sometimes DAO have, or most of the time, DAOs use subcontracting outside the DAO. Sometimes, or most of the time, DAOs are paying their members. They are contributing to the operation with the tokens and with the cryptocurrencies. So it has to have some basic treasury in order to initiate their operation. Secondly, when a user funds into the DAO via the processes, they are actually buying their voting rights in order to put to have the token. They have to put dollars or the other crypto dollars, the fiat money or cryptocurrencies, in order to have the voting right, in order to have to buy their part within the organization. This means the person who spends money on the DAO can exercise more influence on the way it operates. It's kind of, we call it skin on the game. You are engaged, you put stake in the DAO, you put your trust in the vision of the DAO. And in this, you turn into not only a member, but a stakeholder, because you can influence the operation and you can take part of the decision making, and you're kind of an investors, okay, early investors in the operation in the DAO. Deployment would be in a very simplistic way the next part of the process to create, in which we need to create a DAO. Once a DAO is deployed, it becomes completely independent on its creators. First, we have more centric or centralized group of people that would initiate the DAO, will create the first bylaws, and then the organization should be more delegating the decision right and other operation to its members, to its stakeholders. And in the deployment processes, it becomes more autonomous, and every DAO is kind of an open source, which means everyone can view its code and participate in its operation. The transaction or exchange and guidelines are stored for deployment, are stored using blockchain technology for recording and in a fully transparent way and incompatible. People could look at the code and review it, and then they will decide. This will be the basic basic overview in order to decide whether to gain and engage in this operation. It is important to know that DAOs also have quite a few limitations. For instance, it is not smart enough to write the code independently, of course, or it's on its own. The hardware, or to create product, they need human participants. There is a variety of in nature a scope or a range of I can say identity of DAOs, in which in one way you can talk about a more autonomous organization. For instance, exchanges that only need to transfer or yield some interests for the tokens, and they will use for exchanging one cryptocurrencies with the other. The decision making are usually very very small processes, and the automation is more relevant. And in the other end of the range will be DAOs that are more human-centric, and the decision-making and the conversation and the dialogue would be more important for the nature of the organization. So there is a variety of nature in DAOs, and DAO is not a specific creature. It is an umbrella term in which beneath the umbrella you can detect a lot of varieties between those organizations. And they have somehow, they should be agnostic to the field they are operating in. It could be a VC, venture capital organization, it could be a collector organization, it could be a philanthropic organization. The form and the mechanism of DAO could be adequate to each of them, but the amount of human operation or human decision compared to the autonomous one could be a range, and could verify, it could be a variety of activities. So those would be kind of steps that each and every DAO will take in order to crystallize itself. But the most advancement and most deeper processes would be a little bit in a variety. As you can see, only the steps looks very simple, but at the process itself could be very complex. We're dealing with smart contracts, with technologies. We deal with communities. We need to support the community. We have to moderate. We have to manage knowledge. We have to have documentation in order to have the community operate. We have translation we ought to have. We need some design on the community, and each of every part of the operation looks like a usual organization, but somehow you can tell that control and command traditional organization sometimes are more efficient and more easy to manage, because once you have the decision, 3 people or 1 people will have the decision, all the hierarchy, all the pyramid will work for this to complete this operation. And in the DAO, we're operating somehow differently, and the coordination of the part of the DAOs and the decision in the DAO could be more complex. And we need to refer to all those operations and have to each one of the processes, we need to have some tooling or some application in which we could use in order to coordinate the activities. You have to imagine that usually in organization we have a very direct or very clear number of participants. Okay, we can have 100 people, we can have 200 people, sometimes 300 people, but in DAOs we can have indefinite members. We could have a million people in one DAO. Usually very large DAOs are more complex, as you can see, and we have to divide them to sub-DAOs. But we need, in order to coordinate with all those huge number of participants, we need to have tools to coordinate each of every organizational processes, and it's usually very, you have to have a lot of toolings in place to do this in a good way. There are so many activities. We can start with a single group chat, and organically we can divide into work groups of functional committees where members assume ownership of a given milestone or specific tasks. The names and details of those groups are usually dedicated or compliant with their activities. You can see that they are very large processes and very complex, and we have to coordinate them. The token holders authorize the active contributor group with executive decision-making power in a discrete domain. And we can use all the application, and we have a lot of new application every day for those operation. But we can say that some of the tooling or some of the infrastructure are more important than the other. We can say that the frame or the infrastructure in which we need to crystallize the DAOs are more important than if we have a specific application for community or a specific application for HR or for marketing. So we need to have those infrastructure programs in which they are the basic of the DAO. The DAO creator can configure parameters. For example, how long should the voting period be, or which kind of quorum require for adoption or for a proposal of members that would be accepted. We have, as you can see, a few companies or startups that created infrastructure, that means program or application that we can need once we're gathering a new DAO. We can talk about DAO Stake, we can talk about Colony, Aragon, Moloch DAO, and others that helps us to manage basically the DAO that we want to create. And then we would go to a specific tooling or specific application that would help us with treasury management or knowledge management or even identity or voting processes. As you can see, each of these companies are situated in a specific application. Those are for products and contact, others are for compensation management, access and onboarding, contributing and reputation protocols that we need to see and verify the members' contribution. Some other would need the analytics and so on and so forth. There are a variety of solutions, variety of application. We need to drill down or maybe have some referrals from our colleagues in order to find out which application is more relevant for our DAOs. As you can see, the Treasury DAO are very important because they are, the basic of the basic operation of the basic solution that we need in order to operate and to manage our DAO. And I have to say that there are a lot of not only application, but methods for governance, methods for voting. For instance, we can, or decision making, we can talk about DAO decision-making processes in a proposal life cycle. We can usually single voting at the beginning will improve the proposal. Only when a detailed and more thorough proposal are determined, then we will need a variety of decision-making or a specific method for voting. And we have to take, if it is the first DAO we are creating, we have to take into consideration if we want to work with very complex tools, or whether we want at the beginning to use more simpler one in order to help the members to operate in the DAO in each of any process. And maybe later on, when we have more members, when we have more complex processes in place, and maybe more contributors and more engagement in the DAO, then we can switch to the more, more complex tooling to help us manage the DAO. The operational targets or challenges are not the only challenges we have in the DAO field. We have, as you can see, a few issues regarding legislation, regarding laws, regarding regulation, and there are a lot of issues that we need to take into consideration. For instance, as you can see, the regulation are proceeding as well. This is a new arena, new field, and there are new ideas and new operation from the regulator side and from the industry itself. Here we can see a new paper we had from February 2022 from INATBA regarding the decentralized autonomous organization, trying to crystallize the more important issue we have to regulate and to review some other fields or issues that maybe regulation is not needed in this time. There are some national countries, I can say, or jurisdictions that do have they acted already and crystallized some ideas about law regarding the decentralized autonomous organization. We can see Marshall Island about a month ago approved a new act regarding the considering DAO as an organization, operational organization that could operate in the Marshall Island. Other would be in the US. We have Wyoming, and we have some other country trying to crystallize new laws or adopt the existing law to the nature of this new kind of corporate, new kind of organization, and we can see it's not very easy to deal with. Okay, we have some regulation, some solution to liability risk. For instance, this is one of the major risks in DAOs that are not regulated and not registered. Solution to liability risks in DAOs have currently managed in a few in two different ways. We have DAOs that are utilize no legal wrapper. A DAO that operate with no legal wrapper means that their members are likely to have joined several liabilities. Sometimes they don't realize that, and they are vulnerable to law acts and some issues that they are not aware of. And there are DAOs that utilize a limited legal wrapper, like DAO LLC, for instance, in Wyoming bill. We have DAO Foundation, we have WACO. A DAO with a limited legal wrapper would, for example, be managed by a foundation or a non-profit, but the member would be still lack a limited liability. The legal wrapper would represent the DAO's needs when contracting with real-world entities, managing needs of managing real-world assets, and compliance with law are usually a challenge or a problem, even a problem. While this create suitable corporate form, it fails to resolve the joint and severely liable issue of the member of the DAOs. So there are a few issues that we have to consider. Even when we are joining a DAO, we ought to see whether the DAO have any registration in place, and which one. It's important for us as a members to understand which action this DAO, those initiators of DAO took in place. We have two DAO incorporation option at present. We can have DAOs that utilize a full traditional legal wrapper. We have Nexus Mutual, we have the LAO, we have a Cordit. A DAO with full legal wrapper could situate the members with full liability, as we recall, and customer onboarding processes, which would remove the central element of decentralization, somehow would give less liability problems, but could harm the nature of decentralization that we endorse, and we want at the beginning of creating the DAO, we want to establish. So there are a few issues regarding law, regarding tax, and it is very important for members and for initiators of DAO to consider those issues before joining the organization and while they are incorporating the organization and trying to operate one way or the others. I gather some issues that we have to consider. I don't want to review them all, but you have to take into consideration that the regulation right now we can say worldwide, but except of very specific countries, they are not in place yet, and it is kind of a vulnerability that you have to take into consideration once you're coming into this arena. And the change from a traditional organization into a form of DAO 1.0 that we had from, I don't know, 2016, since we have the first DAO that was at VCs that has been stolen a lot of money from its smart contract. And now we're aiming at DAO 2.0, where we have a lot of tooling and a lot of infrastructure that could be in place and help us to do or to create and operate in DAOs in more accountable way. And if we could try to summarize, the DAO structure and tools are compared with traditional organization, as you can see in this slide and the formers. Although the DAO tools help us to redesign our organization from the first principle, we still need to iterate best practices and learn through experience and experiment sometimes. Many of the thinking model we use today for organization design are the legacy of the organization, and we don't. It's kind of a 20th century legacy that we don't want to develop into the new form of organization. We want to alter it and operate it in some innovative way. And we ought to be very clear and very precise in the way we're operating in order not to reuse the same tools or the same state of mind and thinking models once we're creating the new organization that we want for the future. We would like more lively and creature-like natural bodies, natural organizations that could collaborate and coordinate with each other. I'll try to operate this, just a moment, just to operate this film in order to example my idea. I hope it would work. Just a moment. In a minute, I can see you can't see it yet. I'll try to do it again. I hope this will do the trick. Can you see the film?
Yes, it's visible.
I hope you see it. We hope the DAO will be more in, like nature, like a mechanism, natural mechanism in which huge groups could collaborate and coordinate and could work together in some more mutual way and collaborate in more biological, maybe, coordination. This is our aim. Yeah, well, this is the idea. We want to be more natural body, natural organization, and collaborate and coordinate with each other, and communicate with the nature, with the ecosystem, and be more efficient and more effective. And this is the idea of the DAO. So I'm open to your questions.